Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're leading teams, making high-stakes decisions, and managing complex systems every single day, I want you to treat this as a sharp, ROI-focused coaching session. Today, we're looking at exactly how to use neuroscience to give you a massive competitive edge. Because let's be real, your brain is your single most valuable asset, and it is high time we start treating it like one.
So I've got to ask, is your high pressure work actually making your brain weaker? Now, I know that might sting a little bit, but we really need to challenge the executive ego right out of the gate here. We all kind of have this tendency to think that surviving a high pressure 14-hour workday means our brains are incredibly strong, right? But the reality, that demanding environment might literally be actively rewiring you for distraction, impulsivity, and severe cognitive fatigue.
Okay, let's dive into this because understanding this concept changes the whole game. Brain power isn't fixed. You aren't just born smart and then you coast on that forever. It's all about neuroplasticity, which means your brain is constantly, physically adapting its structure to whatever you do every single day. If you train it for deep thought, it structurally gets stronger. But if you train it to jump frantically between 100 emails and Slack messages all day, it physically adapts to become easily distracted. It's doing exactly what you train it to do.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to hit 5 key areas. First, the executive brain reality. Second, reclaiming attention and focus. Third, essential maintenance and input. Fourth, optimizing chemistry and movement. And finally, emotional control and consistency. By the end of this, we'll systematically turn these concepts into a highly actionable 7-habit daily tracker.
All right, part 1, the executive brain reality and understanding neuroplasticity. Let's really pin down the true cost of the modern corporate workday. Think about your daily inputs. If your days are constantly filled with shallow stuff, the fast cuts, endless scrolling, chronic stress, running on terrible sleep, you are quite literally shaping your brain to become mentally weak and fatigued. When your brain is forced to process a million shallow inputs, it fundamentally loses the structural integrity required for deep strategic thinking. Your brain just adapts to the chaos. And let me tell you, it's not a good adaptation. Moving into part 2, reclaiming attention and focus and combating this distraction epidemic. This is where we build the first functional area of our tracker to fix that fractured attention. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive divide between how most executives actually work versus how they need to work. Constant task switching, it forces your brain to pay this massive cognitive switching tax. It just drains your mental efficiency, leaving you totally exhausted, even if you've just been sitting at a desk all day. But on the flip side, training for a focused brain is where the magic happens. That's where mental efficiency, razor-sharp decision-making, and faster learning actually live. So, to get from the distracted brain to that focused brain, we bring in habit 1, train focus. And I want you to treat this exactly like a muscle-building exercise at the gym. Practice just 20 minutes of uninterrupted, single-task concentration every single day. No phone, no Slack notifications, no extra browser tabs. Just you and one task. Now, warning, at first, your overstimulated brain is going to fight you on this. It'll resist. But if you stick with it, this directly strengthens the neural pathways that control your memory, your learning speed, and even your emotional regulation. Now, we are actually jumping ahead to group habit 5 right here with focus, because it is the perfect defensive strategy. You've got to protect your brain from dopamine overload. Set firm boundaries on those constant notifications. Look, modern life is literally engineered to hijack your attention with instant stimulation, which naturally makes normal productive work feel incredibly boring by comparison. By setting these boundaries, you're allowing your baseline motivation to stabilize, which makes deep, strategic work feel so much less difficult.
Okay, part 3, essential maintenance and input, covering sleep and challenging content. Let's look at the absolute minimum daily downtime required to actually maintain an executive brain.
A tired brain cannot become a strong mind. Look, as a productivity coach, I absolutely have to be blunt with you here. You need to stop glorifying sleep deprivation as some sort of badge of honor or hard work. Running your brain on 5 hours of sleep is literally like trying to charge your phone with a frayed, broken cable. It doesn't work. It fundamentally destroys your willpower and leaves you wandering around in a mental fog. Which brings us to our essential maintenance habits. Habit 2 is sleep. And the raw neuroscience here is that a lack of sleep physically weakens activity in your prefrontal cortex. That's the exact part of your brain responsible for self-control, rational thinking, and, not snapping at your team when things go wrong. Sleep is non-negotiable scheduled maintenance. Then we have habit 3, read.
And I mean consuming content that is slightly above your comfort level. This forces active processing and actually rewires your brain for the deep analytical thought that true leadership demands.
Moving to part 4, optimizing chemistry and movement and using exercise for a cognitive edge. Let's see how moving your body directly upgrades your brain chemistry.
So, habit 4. And let me be clear, this has absolutely nothing to do with looking good in a tailored suit. This is exercise for brain power. We're talking 20 to 30 minutes of daily movement to surge blood flow to the brain, which releases chemicals directly linked to memory and mental clarity. But crucially, it also flushes out those chronic stress hormones that are slowly eroding your emotional control behind the scenes. Plus, honestly, forcing yourself to move when you're feeling lazy, that directly trains your executive discipline. You're learning to take action regardless of whether the motivation is there or not.
All right, our final section, part 5, emotional control and consistency. This is where we build systems that outlast fleeting motivation.
Let's break down habit 6, learning emotional control. Because a sharp brain isn't just smart, it's stable. And what's really interesting here is this simple 3-step framework to kill mental chaos. Step 1, create a pause before you react. Literally just give your rational brain a second to catch up to the situation. Step 2, observe your emotions objectively. So instead of thinking, I am angry, you train yourself to think, I notice anger. It's a huge difference. And step 3, improve your physical state. Because as we just covered, a physically stressed out, exhausted body simply cannot regulate high-level emotions. So the absolutely crucial point of all this is motivation is entirely temporary. It's fleeting. Some days you'll wake up feeling driven to conquer the world, and some days you just won't. And if your systems rely on feeling motivated, you will fail, for sure. But consistency creates your identity, and consistent repetition is the only thing that actually changes the physical structure of your brain. And that is habit 7, practice consistency. Those small, repeated, everyday actions matter so much more than those rare, intense bursts of effort. Showing up every single day transforms what feels like forced effort into just normal, everyday behavior. It is the ultimate multiplier for every other habit we've talked about today. When you do these things consistently, discipline stops being a struggle. It literally becomes automatic. So here it is. This is your new daily KPI dashboard, the Daily Brain Training Tracker. It takes this entire neuroscience framework and condenses it into one actionable system. We've got habit 1, 20 minutes of focus to slash those cognitive switching costs. Habit 2, sleep for essential prefrontal cortex repair. Habit 3, reading to force active processing. Habit 4, exercise to flush the stress and boost blood flow. Habit 5, boundary setting to protect your dopamine and normalize motivation. Habit 6, emotional pauses to regulate those impulses. And habit 7, the glue, consistency to cement those new neural pathways. I guarantee you, if you start tracking these daily, you are going to engineer a truly formidable cognitive advantage. And I'm going to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Neuroplasticity never takes a day off. It never stops. Your brain is physically adapting to your environment right at this very second. So you really have to ask yourself, what is your brain adapting to right now? Is it adapting to distraction, instant impulses, and weakness? Or are you forcing it to adapt to focus, discipline, and clarity? Because that choice is entirely up to you. Start tracking these 7 habits today and take total control of your cognitive resilience. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.